As we are doing that, we're already going to get started with our session. Welcome, everyone. We are happy to have you all in a very special session. This session is titled Stewarding Visions of Justice and Restoration, and it will showcase the power of youth and local leadership. This session is co-created by the G20 Global Land Initiative, the Global Landscapes Forum, and the Youth in Landscapes Initiative. So I hope you feel comfortable in your seats and ready to take a trip around the world. We are starting with a virtual one, which will be featuring restoration stewards, JLFX chapters, and UNCCD land heroes. Enjoy.
My name is Ememumo. I am the coordinator of the GLFX Uyo chapter in Nigeria. We, women and local people of Gazette Forest in Nigeria, envisage our land to be restored in different ways, protecting our food supplies, our traditional memories, our medicinal sources, and our connection with land and what gives us identity. We believe that by protecting landscapes, we are protecting our community history and our future. Thank you.
Hi, this is Kakisha, founder president of Green Hope Foundation, and we hope that we are able to harness feminist climate justice to ensure that women have access to their land rights and tenure security so as to achieve land degradation neutrality.
We from the diverse mangrove seascapes in the coastal strip of Kenya wish for our oceans to be a catalyst for food sovereignty to the marginalized groups living near the ocean, and for the beauty and power of big coastal lives to be a source of inspiration both for this generation and the generations to come.
As tropical peatlands are one of the biggest carbon storages, the indigenous environmental island believe that we have to restore the peat ecosystem and protect it for the sake of this planet and the future generation.
Communities in northeastern Nigeria are faced with the ravaging threat of desertification and the expansion of sand dunes. This is one of the many pieces that points toward the need to address land use changes and to protect and restore our lands.
In Sidoarjo, Eastern Java, entire cities are being destroyed by unsustainable mining. As a consequence, the sea and the mud drown my lands, and catastrophes such as these are occurring all over the world. In solidarity for all those acting towards the protection of our landscape, we send you this message. Stand up for your land and be part of the global action towards the construction of a brighter present and future for both nature and people.
My name is Leitoro, and I am a steward. Just by show of hands, who thinks the stewards in this room? But what does it mean to be a steward? Google defines a steward as a person who takes care of passengers on a ship. But I think it's more basic than that. It's realizing that we're all passengers in this ship, and we have a responsibility for this ship. If we don't take responsibility, the ship will sink. So I'm here to speak about the vision of stewarding justice and restoration. But every journey must have a beginning. And I'm going to share a reality of pastoralist communities in northern Kenya, who are a community that are dependent on land. They're land-based people. They are dependent on their livestock, which is their livelihood. So in 2022, which was the hiatus of a 5-year drought, which resulted in the death of 4.2 million livestock. 4.2 million. This is for a community that is dependent on livestock, devastating. What was left only survived because of the dryland forests that were managed and protected by the Rendile and Samburu communities for centuries. That's what was the last lifeline for them. So as we think about this new concept of stewarding, visions of justice and restoration, and the broader topic of a new vision for Earth, I think we have to move away, a shift from all the one shoe fit solution, right? We need to move to supporting local actions which are driven by local experiences and lived realities of the people we work with. This is a priority for us because a new stewardship approach should recognize the stewards of the earth, people who have protected 80% of our biodiversity. So to answer my original question, I think all of us are stewards. Thank you.
Thank you, Letoro, for sharing with us your beautiful vision and for also grounding us all in place. Thank you to all the wonderful restoration stewards, UNCCD land heroes, GLX chapters, and representatives of the youth in landscapes initiatives, who also welcomed us with their own vision of this new earth, right? And as you can see on the screen, we also have a wonderful graphic recording that is taking place during this plenary. Welcome, everyone. My name is Apurva Bose, and I'm the project coordinator at UNCCD G20 Global Land Initiative. Welcome you all to this beautiful, beautiful plenary that we have planned for you, which is co-organized by G20 Global Land Initiative, Global Landscapes Forum, and Youth in Landscapes Initiative. Now, the past 2 days, we've heard so many visions of this new earth. But in this session, what we'd really like to explore is how do we make this vision a reality? How do we help those people who are actually working on this achieve their visions? And for this, I'm joined by 3 amazing people, youth leaders who are doing some amazing work in their communities and landscapes. Happy to hold this space for the stories of Emmanuel Sinta, GLX Kalimantan Coordinator and Director of the Ranu Vellam Foundation, Clemencia Pinasco Ferreros, Communications Coordinator of GLX Amazonia Peruana, and Mashroor Shurid, President and CEO, iPage Global Inc., Bangladesh. Now, we can do a much better thing than that, much better applause. Now, their work is quite different, and they also come from very different places. But there's one thing that actually holds them together. There's one connecting link: land. Now, without further ado, let's move and hear their stories. Clemencia, welcome. Now, the work that you and your team does in Peruvian Amazon is actually a wonderful demonstration of how local community development, income-generating activities, as well as education comes together. I'd love to hear about your body of work and how do you actually bring all these components together?
Thank you, Purva, and thank you for having me in this wonderful stage. 2 years ago, it was confirmed that the eastern regions of the Amazon rainforest were now acting as a carbon source rather than a carbon sink. This means that they were producing more carbon than what they were sequestering. The landscape of the Amazon is changing. The ways in which natural regeneration is taking place in the Amazon are also changing, continuously affecting carbon storage in the Amazon. I just came from Puerto Maldonado, a city in the Madre Dios region of Peru, where for the better part of 3 months, we've had temperatures of over 40 degrees almost every day, unprecedented in the last years that I've been working there. This is a consequence of deforestation, a deforestation that is caused by a dependence on extractive economic activities that depend on unsustainable land use. And here I'm talking about informal gold mining, slash and burn agriculture, cattle farming. These activities are the most accessible, dependable, what people know in the front lines of the Amazon rainforest. These are the activities that frontline actors in deforestation, native communities, smallholder farmers, are the most engaged with. At GLFX Amazonia Peruana and Camino Verde, we believe that the Amazon can be restored. But to do this, we must disrupt this economic system. And we propose regenerative economies, and we are able to facilitate the introduction of regenerative economies into our regions of the Amazon through native species-based agroforestry systems that are planted by smallholder farmers in native communities and agricultural societies that, one, restore the forest, and two, provide alternative livelihoods through the sale of non-timber forest products. Thank you.
Thank you, Clementia. That's truly inspiring what you do. Now, over to you, Emanuela. Thank you firstly for joining us today. It's truly an honor to have you. Your work actually beautifully pulls together restoration, indigenous culture, as well as youth leadership. Now, how do you bring together land, people, and so many different components together, as well as climate? How do you make that the crux of your work? I'd love to hear more.
Okay. Adil Catalino bacuramin kasaruga basengat kajubata arus arus arus. Greetings from Dayak Kalimantan people. My name is Emanuela Shinta. I am a Dayak indigenous persons. We are Dayak people, the first people of the Borneo Islands. I live in Kalimantan. That's the part of the Borneo that belong to Indonesia. We share the island with Brunei and also Malaysia. And talking about my works, basically everything started because of the disaster in 2015 when we had this huge fire when our city called as the most polluted city in the world, and the air pollution at the time equals to smoking to 672 cigarettes in a day. So that's the beginning of our works, because at the time no one could fly in or fly out, nowhere to hide from the haze, and the wildfires happened for 4 months at the time. So at the time, me and my friends, we just thought like this: if we do not stand for ourselves, who else will? We should not be a victim. We should be heroes in our own land. So that's the beginning of our works, and we focus more on youth leadership, indigenous youth specifically. So since that time, the next year, the year after the disaster, we founded this organization called Ranwelum Foundation. So basically, it's indigenous initiative that combine the modern technology together with indigenous wisdoms to address the environmental issues, to preserve the indigenous culture, protect Kalimantan rainforest, and also to fight for the indigenous right of the people of Kalimantan. And our works mostly relied on the digital storytelling, because we bring the indigenous ecological knowledge to people outside there. We want them to know that indigenous people have been the guardians of the forest for 1,000 years, and they are the one that manage more than 80% of global biodiversity. So that's actually how our work started. And right now I'm here thanks to the Global Landscape Forum, who have been supporting us for the past few years. And well, I can talk more about it later. Thank you.
I'm sure our audience also cannot wait to hear more about it. So really looking forward to discussing more. Now, welcome, Masroor. I think your career trajectory and the work that you do is a perfect example of how ecopreneurship can actually help nature as well as people. I'd love to hear more about the work that you're conducting.
Thank you very much, Apurva. Hi, everyone. I'm Masroor. I'm from a Southeast Asian country named Bangladesh. So we are one of the 7th most climate vulnerable nation in the world. With the climate change, we are sinking every year. 1/3 of our soil mass is exposed to heavy salinity. And in my country, there's 16 million farmers. Majority of them are using manual processes. and using their tongue to understand the salinity of the soil. And they do have lack of access to information on soil, weather, and they depend on gas-dependent practices for agriculture. So I also come from a farmer family, and I was never inspired to be a farmer because farming doesn't have, apparently farming doesn't have any financial future here. So I wanted to change that scenario. So that's why my company, iPage Global, has introduced a rapid soil testing and prescription system that helps the farmer to test their soil within 5 to 7 minutes, and also tell them which high-value crops are suitable for the land, which variable rate of fertilizer they should be applying, and what type of seed and fertilizer and pesticide they should be continuing to apply in different phases. Right now, we are supporting more than 12,000 farmers, mostly the climate vulnerable farmers in wetlands, in salt-prone areas. We not only help them with advisory and soil test, but also we connect them with the ecosystem actors like the banks, like the NBFI, insurers, because advisory that doesn't make money or give direct impact. But when we connect them with the ecosystem through the advisory, that's the moment that real change starts to happen. So that's who I am, and that's what we are doing.
Thank you, Masroor. And a lot of things you said right now, we will be diving right into it soon. But before that, let's take a digital trip to Zambia, where we're joined by David Chapoloko. David is a very recognized global land hero by UNCCD and an environmental activist who's also done some incredible work in the field of land restoration. Let's go.
Thank you so much, Apurva, for this. And I'm grateful to the G20 Land Initiative for putting up a plenary, particularly to discuss the issue of land at the GLF Africa Conference. Land is one issue that I'm very, very passionate about. Because of my history, I've got this inclination towards land. I grew up in a small mining township called Rwanda, so in the Coco province of Zambia. And I remember for the first time being exposed as a child, I think in my fifth grade, to issues of desertification because of the pollution that was coming from the mines to this community and to this area. And of course, not only the environmental challenges, but of course, the sulfur dioxide that we used to breathe. I think it raised very important questions for me that I remember being inquisitive as a child, asking my parents, why is it that we are living like this and nobody is doing anything about it? I think that shaped my career. It contributed so much to shaping my career into becoming a land champion and later on in life, a land hero. And I think this is one thing that inspired me to pursue forestry and just to see how I can apply forestry and land use to the issues of land restoration. I remember in high school winning the first prize in the JETS competition through an innovation that I called a simple water purifier. And the rationale was really to see how I could use this innovation to help communities that are living in degraded areas like the one I grew up from to access safe and clean water. So it's coming from there. And yeah, so I'm an initiator of two initiatives. One of them is Plan for Climate Zambia, which is a youth initiative, and we are partnering with communities and young people to see how we can champion land restoration. And one of the projects that we're doing at that plan in Zambia, we are calling it Brain Development Academy, where we are trying to equip young people and communities in areas like where I grew up from to champion land restoration through green development, by equipping them with green development skills and also trying to combine them with entrepreneurship, leadership, and of course, innovations. And if I was like, if there is anything that I'm very proud of all my initiatives, it's the most recent one, which is Connect Technologies, where we are trying to use the power of digital transformation into land restoration. So we are working with farmers and trying to build a digital community for farmers and trying to see how we could use the power of technology to enhance their production, their productivity, but of course, to also help in practicing sustainable agriculture practices. like we know, land is integrity, land is life, and land is our future. That is my story, and thank you, Apuva.
Thank you, David. It would have been great to have David also on this panel with us, but really glad we could hear him digitally at least. Now, thank you everyone for sharing your amazing body of work, at least a little peek into it. Now I'd like to dive a little deeper into the kind of challenges that you've faced in your respective trajectories, especially when it comes to the transformative changes that we need, um, that's rooted in self-determination and local solutions. Maybe we can start with you, Emanuela. You're somebody who works very closely with indigenous communities, indigenous youth and women, as you spoke about, and they are actually seen as the true stewards of this earth. So, according to you, what are some of the support, whether it's financial, institutional, individual, or collective action? Like, how can we support them so that they are at the front lines and they have the agency? How can we support them?
Right. Indigenous people are less than 5% of the world populations. But like I mentioned earlier, they manage more than 80% of the global biodiversity. But the fact is, indigenous people only receive less than 1% of the climate funding. That's already a problem. And even me, I am the founder of these organizations, and we do a lot of works on the ground level, blessing the fires like every year since 1997. But right now, I'm desperately trying to raise funds only for 7K US dollars. I desperately sending emails, begging, asking for donations from $10 to $20. Why? Because it's very hard for us as the community at the ground level to access those funding. So this is the problem that I believe not only faced by my people or my organizations, but also other indigenous community or like local youth initiatives on the ground level. So when you ask about what is the support they need, right now I dare say it's a climate funding. It's a funding that should be channeled directly to the local communities at the ground level. And right now, as I'm speaking to you here in Nairobi, there in Kalimantan, in my home island, there are more than 100 young people fighting the fires, trying to put up over 2,000 fire spots day and night with very limited resources. So imagine what you can do in these kind of situations. So I think that's the very crucial things that everyone has to think right now. How we can make a change, especially in these funding models, to make the local communities able to access those funds.
Thank you, Manuela. And I think that's something which we all must keep in mind, and I think you've truly pointed out as well. Now, we've attended a lot of sessions at GLF, and Mashur, I think some of the sessions that you attended as well, there has been a lot of talk about like food sovereignty and livelihoods, right? And the work that you do, especially the close connection that you have with smallholder farmers, what are some of the policy and transformational changes that's needed in policy level when it comes to giving these people access to livelihoods, but also ensuring that soils are healthy and it's sustainable as well? So what's the gap that exists when it comes to especially policy and financial transformations that needs to happen?
Okay, so I would say that number one thing that we need to look in is that, well, there are climate funds available. For example, World Bank has given out $38 billion this year for climate fund. And then Emanuela's organizations, they didn't get anything. Why? Because I believe there is a policy gap. So I would summarize this thing in manner. We need long-term, patient, failure-friendly financing policy to support entrepreneurs like us so that this fund can go. Number two, we just do not need policy. We also need the implementation. So we need more effective implementation of these policies through massive public-private partnerships. Let's work together in there. And number three, I believe entrepreneurs like us, we are not experienced. We don't understand the regulatory factors. Now, to let us grow and continue to do what we're doing, perhaps we can also be demanding Equipreneur Sandbox, which will create an enabling environment for us to get access to those policies and the implementations with lesser regulatory complexities. These are the things that are in my mind.
Thank you, Mashroor. And I think, of course, as you said, implementation is key. Now, moving on to Clementia, within this note of social aspects associated with restoration, we know that a lot of people are left behind at the end. And building upon what Emanuela spoke about and what Mashroor also spoke about, what's the gap that exists right now when it comes to supporting people dependent on land without perpetuating social exclusion?
I think we've had two very vital parts introduced already, policy and finance transformation. They need to be adaptive. They need to be context specific. They need to allow each community where they're going to reach to thrive in their own cultural, environmental context. And at least for the initiative that I'm a part of that we work in with farmers in the frontline who are the frontline actors in deforestation, but they're also the frontline actors in restoration. But to do so, there needs to be some kind of tangible, sustainable alternative to the extractive economic activities that I was mentioning in my previous intervention. And with this, we're able to facilitate connections to foreign global markets that were previously inaccessible. We partner and we facilitate the creation of a market of, particularly right now, I work with rosewood essential oil. Highly niche, high-value non-timber forest product that provides sustainable, reliable livelihoods to families while encouraging restoration, while enabling the restoration of over 60 hectares of indigenous lands and the protection of an equivalent size of land as well. And these are the activities that allow them to continue to thrive, allow them to continue to grow and diversify their incomes, to decrease their reliance on extraction, decrease their reliance of unsustainable land use. And this, paired with transformative policy change, transformative financial tools, will enable grassroots communities, local communities to continue to grow, evolve, and set a new vision for it.
Thank you, Clementia. And I think all three of you have brought in such a holistic insight into what we really need, from implementation to policy to financial, like so many different aspects, which I think really gives us a lot to think, going back from this conference. I think there's a lot for us to ponder over as well. Now, in this room, we have people from different walks of life. We have farmers, we have policymakers, activists, financiers, and many more. And what we're essentially trying to do in this conference is we're trying to build a vision, right? Vision for a new earth, vision that's almost like a survival guide, right? So maybe I can come back to all three of you and ask you, what do you think is that crucial element in bringing about that survival guide where we're not just surviving, but we're actually thriving? Maybe I can start with you, Mashroor.
So the biggest threat to our planet is the idea of someone else will save it, right? So I want to put this in the survival guide. Let's co-create and collaborate in doing what we're doing to save the planet so that that threat doesn't come in reality.
Thank you, Mashroor. Now, over to you, Clementia. What's your survival guide in one sentence?
We need to listen to our differences. We need to listen to why we think differently. And we need to build bridges that unite these differences. And through these bridges, we're going to be able to find resilient solutions that provide climate justice, that provide better livelihoods, and that will encourage sustainable development.
And we're listening to everything that you've said as well, Clementia. Now, Emanuela, over to you.
One sentence? Okay. I believe this is the time for us to go for the new funding model. It should be trust-based philanthropy. You should trust your partner. And this is the time for funders, communities, practitioners, all stakeholders to believe in each other's uniqueness needs, and capacities. That's how we can move together. Thank you.
Thank you to my wonderful speakers. A big round of applause for my beautiful speakers. Now, as we're approaching the end of this session, I want to ask you, our lovely audience who's been so supportive, a few questions. These questions might seem a little simplistic, but what I'd really like to say is that it's extremely important as well. How many of us in this room feel very nervous about the future of our world? If you think you're really fearful and you're really nervous about the future of this world, I really, really appreciate it if you could please rise. Thank you. Now you may remain seated. I just wanted to get you all to stand up, that's all. Now, how many of us in this room feel extremely hopeful? You're really hopeful for the future of this earth. Thank you. Now you may remain seated. Maybe I can go to our speakers and ask them what they thought of from this exercise. This is a little exercise. You saw a lot of people. I think most of the people stood up when I asked them if they were really fearful, when they were really nervous about the future of the world. So, Clemencia, over to you. What are your initial thoughts about the reaction?
I think it's completely normal. I think it's okay to be fearful. I think it's much better to be hopeful. And we need to have both, because without fear, we won't think of solutions. We won't have hope. And yeah, I will keep it short and sweet.
Emanuela?
Well, yeah, it proves that actually we share the same fear and same problem, but we also share the same solution. So just continue work together after this.
Masroor?
I saw that good number of the audience are young, and together we are here. So while I was feeling the same fear, I'm also very much optimistic and hopeful about going somewhere with the solution, because we are young and we have time ahead of us, and we can definitely make the real change.
Thank you. When I saw the response, and I think this is almost the kind of response that I was expecting as well, I think it's really good for us to be nervous and fearful, because that would also help us to collaborate and work together for a better future. And at the same time, to be hopeful, because we're all here, we've all come together to talk about how do we create this new vision, right? So I think that's a good step in the right direction. So thank you for being with us today. I'd also like to really thank our speakers who have come together from different parts of the world to share their collective vision for this new earth. The stories we've heard today demonstrated potential that lies within landscapes, communities, indigenous groups working towards a sustainable future, and an inclusive one, that too. I'd like to now invite on stage Joanne Lee, Program Officer Stakeholder Engagement at UNCCD, to talk a little bit about our initiative, but also to talk about how we're bringing all this discussion to UNFCCC COP28 and beyond. Over to you, Joanne.
Thank you, Purva. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here in Nairobi with you this week for Global Landscapes Forum. And this was a very lively and enriching session with our youth activists and our youth ecopreneurs. It really tied in well with our events in our pavilion, the G20 Global Land Initiative and UNCCD pavilion here at GLF. So for those of you who didn't have a chance to visit our pavilion and learn about us, the G20 Global Land Initiative was launched by the G20 leaders at the Riyadh Summit in 2020. We're driven by the ambitious goal to reduce degraded land by 50% by the year 2040. And through this initiative, we are dedicated to sharing knowledge and data, empowering communities, and building their capacity for land restoration, showing success stories that illustrate tangible impacts, and engaging with all stakeholders. The G20 Global Land Initiative and UNCCD have a long-lasting partnership with C4ICRAF, not only through GLF, but also we have many exciting activities lined up, including developing a global course on innovative agriculture solutions for land restoration. So looking ahead to COP28, UNCCD will have its own pavilion space for the first time at the UNFCCC COP under the theme Land and Drought Resilience. So we have several events planned for COP28, including on many of the issues that were touched upon during this session, including private sector financing, indigenous peoples, sustainable agriculture, as well as on women's land rights and faith-based groups, extractive industries, and others. So we hope to continue these discussions at COP28 later this year and find ways to collaborate and scale up action to conserve and restore our ecosystems and lands. And from what I've seen and heard during this session, our youth leaders are certainly paving the way. So thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And from all the discussion, maybe just to tie things up, our survival guide should definitely prioritize collective empowerment and partnership, where land and people are intertwined, fostering hope, resilience, and the thriving future that we all desire. But before we wrap up this session, I'd like to ask our speakers, now that we have a little bit of time, we're doing really good on time today. What does the word land mean to you? I know a lot of you work very closely with land. What does the word land mean to you? And what does land restoration mean to you as well? We can start with you, Manuela.
Land is our identity. It's the part of my identity as an indigenous, and restoration means I protect my identity, my people, my culture, the whole being, the whole I am. So it's very meaningful for me.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Clemencia?
Building on what Emanuela just said, land is our opportunity to restore our planet, to continue fostering climate solutions that allow us to thrive, that allow communities that live in the forest, that live in the land, to continue thriving, to continue growing, and will allow the world to thrive.
And thrive we must. Mashur, your thoughts?
Well, land is our home, and restoration of land means to me is the protection of our home. That's it, simple.
Thank you. I think everything that you've said ties up everything, all the work that we do at G20 Global Land Initiative, all the work that all of you do, and everything, back home as well. So thank you so much for your beautiful words. And now I'd like to pass on. And before that, because I haven't thanked the most special people, a lot of people have worked in the background, and a lot of people have done so much for this plenary to happen. I'd like to really thank our G20 Global Land Initiative team, Joanne, who's taken so much effort into making this happen, and our GLF team has been so supportive, and Irini, who's the mastermind behind this session, Anna Bucci, who's done a fabulous job at everything, Anna Yi, I'm not sure if she's here, but yeah, she was fantastic as well, Pedro, and so many people as well. I'm probably forgetting a few names here, but thank you so much. We had a wonderful team along with the speakers. We met a lot of times, we spoke about it, we ideated, and we really worked together as a team, which I think was fantastic. And thank you, and we really hope to co-create and collaborate in the future as well. Now, passing on to the lovely MC, who will then go on to the closing ceremony as well. So thank you, signing off, bye.
Wow, youth sessions are always amazing, right? Have you enjoyed the session? Thanks very much, Apova, for being an amazing moderator, and also our amazing speakers. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, G20 Global Land Initiative, the Global Landscapes Forum, and the Youth in Landscapes Initiative for hosting us for that great session. So at this moment, I'll be very, very quick because we are now moving on to the closing plenary. Apova talked about hope, and I saw a lot of you stand. And this is one thing that I think will be going with all of us as we head back to business as usual. I don't want to call it that, because we are not going back to business as usual. We came to create a new vision for Earth. So we are going to get started right away with our closing plenary. And now, allow me to hand over to our moderator for this plenary, Ruth Nesova.
Key stakeholders are here. Scientists, policymakers, indigenous people, practitioners, youth, financiers, activists, artists, and more. We need everyone for a new vision for Earth. A vision that takes us beyond surviving, a vision that charts the way forward to thriving.
We want to unite around a possible new dream, around some solutions that we have, the places where we can find hope, that new vision for Earth.
A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, depending on where you're listening to us from around the world. My name is Ruth Nesova. I'm the Vice President of the Kenya Editors Guild. I'm also the Regional Deployments and News Gathering Editor, BBC World Service, based here in Nairobi. It gives me so much pleasure to be with you here this evening. And it's very exciting that we have arrived to the end of this GLF 2023 hybrid conference, exploring together new visions for Earth and what a journey it has been. I think many of you have seen yourselves on the screen, some of the highlights that we've gathered over the 2 days that we have been here. And thank you so much for making the time to be here with us, here in the room, and all those who joined us online. It's because of you that we made it. Without you, we would not have been. And I hope you have been able to also get some little time to go and enjoy the rich Kenyan culture and formed new partnerships and friendships from all over the world. Amidst the challenges that we have heard about the climate change crisis that is before us, I know that there is some hope for a just transition to a decarbonized world, because every degree matters and we must act now. That is the message. As you have seen from the latest IPCC 6th assessment report, it highlighted the need, the urgent need for action, and it predicts a more likely than not scenario of a 1.5 degrees Celsius rise in the temperatures of the world before the up from the pre-industrial levels. And this may lead to irreversible losses and critical climate tipping points, and that's where we are heading to. But we need to understand why we haven't fully transitioned away from fossil fuels, why we haven't protected our forests enough, and why we have not reduced deforestation. These are some of the critical questions that require our attention and collective action, and these are some of the things or issues that we're going to discuss at this closing plenary. So together as thought leaders, as participants, as experts, we have the power to define the next steps that are needed to address the climate crisis. And it's because of this that we have put up a very incredible panel, a very incredible set of experts from around the world who will be speaking to us and speaking to about the issues that we've just talked about. So it gives me much pleasure and honor to introduce our first speaker, Her Excellency Marina Silva, Minister of Environment and Climate Change from Brazil. She's also a very world-renowned environmentalist and an advocate. I spoke to her earlier and asked her to share her vision for Earth, given the current climate and biodiversity crisis that we have. Let's watch.
Agradeço pela oportunidade de poder participar desse seminário de celebração. De fato, nós estamos vivendo um momento histórico da trajetória da humanidade, em que os ideais identificatórios que nos trouxeram até aqui se mostram insuficientes para que possamos dar continuidade à nossa jornada em condições minimamente dignas para a condição que promove a vida humana e as outras formas de vida na Terra. Nós estamos vendo e pagando um preço muito alto pelas mudanças que tivemos dos ideais identificatórios que nos trouxeram até o início da Revolução Industrial. Na minha opinião, era o ideal do ser, e passamos para o ideal do ser. O problema é que nós temos mais de 8 bilhões de seres humanos com capacidade infinita de desejar, e as pessoas desejam ter coisas, e o planeta já se mostra insuficiente para atender todas essas demandas. Sorte que os ideais identificatórios que poderão nos ajudar a salvar a vida, a salvar o equilíbrio do planeta, é aquele que é capaz de usar com sabedoria os recursos naturais, cultivar e, ao mesmo tempo, guardar esses recursos, protegendo, inclusive, a suficiência necessária dos serviços ecossistêmicos, os ideais identificatórios que tínhamos até a Revolução Industrial, sobretudo até o mercantilismo, era o ideal do ser. Os gregos queriam ser sábios e livres, os romanos queriam ser grandes e fortes, provavelmente os egípcios queriam ser imortais. Na Idade Média, as pessoas, mesmo tendo cometido muitos pecados em nome da santidade, queriam ser santas. Mas, no mercantilismo, as pessoas fizeram um deslocamento para o ideal do ter. E, no meu entendimento, é impossível atender essa demanda, porque os recursos naturais são finitos e a nossa capacidade de desejar, como alguém já disse, é infinita. O novo ideal identificatório terá que migrar do ideal do ter para o ideal do ser, sair dos limites extensivos e ir para os limites intensivos. Nos limites extensivos, nós estamos disputando recursos, coisas. Nos limites intensivos, nós podemos desenvolver outros aspectos da nossa condição humana. Há limites para ter, mas não há limites para ser. Há limites para continuar usando indefinitivamente o combustível fóssil, mas não há limites para fazer a melhor poesia, não há limites para compor a melhor música, não há limites para dar a melhor aula. Como eu costumo dizer, acho que as ferramentas, a maior parte, nós já temos. Nós já temos respostas de como produzir energia do sol, energia do vento, energia da água, energia da biomassa, para substituir a matriz de suprimento de energia. Infelizmente, essa resposta técnica não tem sido acompanhada da devida decisão política e do devido compromisso ético de usá-la em benefício das grandes transformações que precisam acontecer. O papel do Brasil é o de liderar pelo exemplo. O nosso maior vetor de emissão de CO2 é a transformação do uso da terra e desmatamento. E o Brasil tem compromisso com o desmatamento do Brasil. Agora, nós precisamos fazer esse essa mudança e mudando ao mesmo tempo o modelo de desenvolvimento. Não apenas do Brasil, mas do mundo. Porque mesmo que a gente chegue ao desmatamento zero, se o mundo não parar de usar combustível fóssil, a Amazônia vai ser destruída do mesmo jeito. Portanto, é usar as respostas técnicas que temos com o compromisso ético necessário para fazer as transformações que o mundo precisa. Da minha perspectiva, o futuro da Amazônia só tem de que ela continue sendo a Amazônia, de que seus povos originários continuem fazendo o seu percurso histórico, social, cultural, em todos os sentidos. Para que se possa fazer com que ela continue sendo a Amazônia, é preciso que façamos a mudança que o mundo precisa levar em conta de fazer, que é encerrar a era dos combustíveis fósseis. Enquanto continuarmos financiando os produtos que são carbono intensivos, a matriz energética fóssil, a Amazônia estará em risco. É difícil fazer essa transição, com certeza não é fácil, mas não há capacidade de suporte para continuarmos usando indefinidamente carvão, petróleo e gás na matriz energética global. E aí é criar espaço de cooperação. O Brasil é um país que pode ser um grande provedor de energia limpa, de hidrogênio verde, e é uma contribuição que pode ser dada em parceria com outros países do mundo que não têm as mesmas oportunidades.
Thank you very much. That was Marina Silva, the Environment Minister for Brazil. She also takes care of climate change. And what I've picked from her is that there are limits for having, but there are no limits for being. There are limits to choose to use fossil fuel, but there would be no limits to write poetry. So just reflect on that as we continue listening to more inspiring speakers this evening. And I would like to bring on board online another amazing speaker, and he is Bill McKibben. Bill is an author, an educator, and an activist. He has dedicated his life to raising awareness about climate change. As the founder of 350.org, the first global grassroots climate campaign, he has mobilized millions to fight for a sustainable future. As a founder of the Third Act, a movement rallying individuals over 60 for climate and racial justice, he pioneers intergenerational efforts. Bill, good evening and welcome.
Well, pleasure to be with you all. I wish, of course, that I was there with you in person in Nairobi, one of my favorite cities. But it's good to be able to join you by low-carbon Zoom from the other side of the world here in Vermont in the United States, where I live and work. I want to say just a few things. The first is that this gathering comes at a really important moment. 2023 is a year unlike any other in human history. We've seen temperatures in the last 4 months higher than we've ever seen on this planet for at least 125,000 years, which means that higher than any human society that we'd recognize as similar to our own has never endured temperatures like the ones that we've seen. And the effects are, of course, obvious: the fires, the floods, the ongoing tragedies that come when we alter something as fundamental as the climate, how much of the sun's energy stays here close to home. I've spent my life working on that. I wrote the first book about climate change in 1989, so a long time ago. We've seen very slow progress, but that progress is beginning at least a little bit to pick up. And that is thanks to the remarkable work of scientists and engineers, who, among other things, brought us affordable power from the sun and the wind. The cost of solar power and the cost of wind power has dropped 90% in the last decade. We now live on an Earth where the cheapest way to produce energy is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. That is a remarkable, remarkable gift. And if we took it seriously, we could make very rapid progress. We're not making that rapid progress yet. And the reason we're not is because the fossil fuel industry, oil, gas, coal, keeps us from making advances at the speed that science demands. So our job is to stand up to that industry and to demand a new future. That is why I end up going to jail a good many times, trying to block new pipelines and refineries and things. That is why so many people are working so hard. We all share one sky. It knows no borders. The carbon dioxide produced anywhere on Earth mixes across that sky in a matter of days. That sky is where the problem is located. That's where the air is heating up. It's also where the solution is located. It's where the rays of the sun and where the breeze blowing past allow us a new way to power our lives. If we take seriously the idea that we all live under the same sky, then we have a chance here. But that demands action, and it demands it very, very fast. Climate change is the first real timed test that humans have encountered. We have just a few years in order to make dramatic change. It is playing out now in real time. So I think my message to anyone is, if you've been hanging back a little bit or waiting for the right moment to come, the right moment is now. There no longer is any room for delay. We have run out of spare years. If we do not make dramatic progress in the next immediate future, then people will look back at this moment on Earth and say, this is the point when it all began to go truly, truly bad. But they could also look back on 2023 and 2024 and 2025 and think, this is the year when people finally started getting it together, finally began to move at the speed that we require. I do not know which of those two things will happen. Nobody knows. All we know is that the odds of the right thing happening go up if we push hard together. And I will just close by saying that, speaking on behalf of those of us at Third Act, those of us who are older, those of us who have gray hair or no hair at all, will be following the lead of young people and doing everything we can to make change as fast as we can. We may not have that much time left on this earth because we're old, but we will use that time as well as we possibly can to try and make sure that there's a future for those who come after us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. I wanted to throw in a second question, but I think that what you have told us is quite insightful. I will leave it at that. Now, I'd like to invite two esteemed speakers to join me for a short discussion, shifting from vision to action, as we've been urged by Bill. And how are we going to implement this action? How are we going to implement a survival guide? Bringing online, I'm being joined by Ms. Sandrine Dixon de Cleve. She's a co-president, the Club of Rome, and divides her time between leading the Club of Rome, advising, lecturing, and facilitating difficult conversations. Alongside her is Professor Lindiwe Majele Sibanda. She is the chair, CGIAR, or SIGIA, System Board. She's an animal scientist and a practicing farmer with extensive experience serving as a policy advisor to numerous African governments and global institutions. Let's welcome them. And Ms. Dixon, in 2022, you co-authored the book, Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity. And there are scenarios you have developed. Yeah? Okay. I'm told we don't have the other guest, Ms. Sandrine Dixon-DeCleve, but we do have Professor Lindiwe Majele Sibanda. Professor Sibanda, my apologies and good evening and welcome to this discussion. As chair of SIGIA System Board, also serving as a practicing farmer, and very passionate about farming, considering the extensive experience you have had in different sectors and fields, what does a survival guide mean for you, particularly as a practicing farmer in Africa?
Well, I think the joy to be here and to share experiences from an older lens, but also a practicing practitioner's view. What does it mean? I think the issue is climate change is real. It's hitting us. I remember 2013, where I moderated a session at COP19, where we were talking about shaping development agenda for forests and agriculture. This was in Warsaw, Poland. At that time, climate change, agriculture, and forests were separated. And we tried for the first time to have a conversation together. The scare word that I, as a moderator, used was that by 2025, it seemed so far away. 70% of the population, or half of the world's population, would be facing water scarcity. It is happening now in my own backyard, in my farm. 3 years ago, we ran out of water in Zimbabwe where I'm farming. I'm doing livestock farming, and I'm proud to say I'm raising my cattle off the veld, but we ran out of water. The animals would come up to the homestead gate and break through because they could see the tape with dripping water in the homestead, yet they didn't have any water. What have I had to do? I've had to cull the animals, destock by 70%. I'm left with 30% of my original head. And that's a coping mechanism, and I had no choice. I tried to drill boreholes. The original borehole was at 40 meters. Now I'm told I need to go down 100 meters to get water, and that water would not be even sufficient for the animals I have. So, coping mechanisms, climate change is real. We have to adapt. We have to change the way we've been doing business, but more important, we have to call on technologies, science, the solutions that are on the shelf that we can then adopt and implement. And that's why I'm proud to be chairing the largest public funded entity of research organizations whose main aim is to deliver science and technologies in the face of climate change through transformation of land, water, and food systems. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we'll come back to you. Thank you very much, Professor Sibanda. We'll come back to you for more on actions and practical solutions. But I'd like to invite Ms. Dixon-DeCleve to talk to us a bit about her book, Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, and apologies. I was actually watching this wonderful conference on the wrong link, so I was not connected somehow. It's wonderful to follow Professor Lindiwe and also Bill McKibben. Both very instrumental in very different ways in terms of ensuring that we move forward and develop an Earth for all that is truly respectful of people, planet, and prosperity at the same time. 50 years ago, the Club of Rome, the organization that I am co-president for, indicated very clearly that in the 2020s, we would start to see through alternative scenarios that they have put forward and through modeling that they undertook, that we would start to see some severe tipping points. And I felt that it was my responsibility alongside my colleagues as we commemorated this 50-year anniversary in actually a few years ago, that we start to think through what then is the 21st century way that we can actually build an Earth for all. What are the solutions that we need, shifting, not only focusing on land use, but looking, and I've heard the resume and the kind of summary that was given of the last session, thinking through the role of women, understanding the role of the extractive economy that we have continued to allow to perpetuate the problems that we see, the neo-colonial way in which our economies have taken natural resources away from low-income countries into high-income countries and created a disproportionate material footprint and emissions in the North. What also is the role of the youth? And we have to remember that 50% of our planet is made up of young people. So what we wanted to do collectively as economists and scientists, this is not just my book, it is a book of 6 authors supported by a series of contributors from across the globe and a transformational economics commission, was to first undertake what we call a system dynamic model, to plot out the interactions between social tipping points, environmental tipping points, shifts within our economies, our financial frameworks, and an understanding of what happens on the ground. To then take all of that data and all those algorithms and stress test them against people that are actually practicing new economic theory and thinking through how we can actually apply it in practice. And then producing a publication which is called Earth for All, a Survival Guide for Humanity, with some real clear pathways forward. So we come through all of that process to 2 key scenarios. One, which is too little, too late scenario, which basically is today the business as usual scenario. And the other, which is the giant leap scenario, which means that we need to implement 5 key turnarounds. And those turnarounds are, most importantly, poverty, inequality, not only between the North and the South or between low-income and high-income countries, but also within countries. Because what we noticed with those first 2 was that actually we are growing inequalities in those countries that are supposedly the wealthiest. That well-being has dramatically plummeted in the last 10 years in the United States in particular. That the wealth differential and the lack of wealth distribution has created huge social tensions, not only across the globe, but in particular, once again, in the United States. So that the capitalistic model, the model that actually is anchored in extractive economies, has proven absolutely categorically not to enable people to thrive and is creating a part of the population that needs to survive. Those are the first 2. The third is the importance of empowerment. Empowerment both to bring women into the decision-making, because this is a century where we need as much diversity of thinking, of working, of practicing real change, but also the importance of access to education, the importance of access to community leadership, where we see that so many women do show leadership. And we heard about women in particular on the front lines in agriculture, where many of these women don't even own the land that they actually have been working on.
All right, thank you so much. You can just hold that thought there so that then we can go quickly to Professor Sibanda to just quickly reflect a bit on the key messages that you have passed and look at the role that governments perhaps can play and the key players can put in looking for practical solutions to these issues that you've raised. Professor Sibanda.
Professor, you're on mute.
Thank you. This is a war that we cannot win without governments taking a lead in creating a conducive policy environment. What do I mean by a conducive policy environment? Let's go to the area of technology development. We have invested in research, the monies are not enough, but we have gene banks where we have stored, collected genetic material that may hold the answer to climate smart, resilient crops that we can go back to. Our researchers are seized with the challenge of generating those technologies, but for as long as we don't bring in private sector who will help us multiply and get the technologies to every household, this will remain on the shelf. What does government need to do? It needs to create the policies that will allow the technologies to be accessed, affordable, and sustainably utilized by the people who need them the most, which is the farmers and the consumers who buy the food. We are currently experiencing very high inflation translating to high food prices. Part of that is because we've been caught unawares. We were not ready for the challenge of climate change that we're facing. Had we been climate smart to diversify our food basket, we could be having better foods that our grandmothers, particularly in Africa, used to feed us on, but we've pushed them back and gone for novel foods that are more expensive to buy. So governments, call to action. Can we walk the talk? Can we accompany technology development by incentivizing private sector, by putting money in research? Currently, our governments are not putting enough. Currently, the organization I lead has close to just 1 billion. We're on a campaign to push this to $2 billion a year. And even that is not enough. We need all hands on deck to push more technologies, but more important, to get them to the farmer, to get them to the consumer, and government needs to play an active role. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You've mentioned the private sector, and that got me thinking, where are they and what is their role? We have Tim Christopherson. He is a Vice President of Climate Action at Salesforce, and he is transited from a distinguished public service career to the private sector in 2022, that's last year. He's going to offer some unique insights, and he talks a bit about the urgency that the latest IPCC report has highlighted. We are eager to look at some of the strategies that he will be talking about. So let's listen to these critical matters. The floor is yours, Tim.
Hello, Global Landscapes Forum. I'm Tim Christopherson, Vice President of Climate Action at Salesforce. We're one of the world's largest technology companies and a world leader in artificial intelligence and customer relationship management. We're also a sustainability leader. I'd like to make 3 points today at this plenary. One is about leadership, the second is about coordination, and the third is about finance. Leadership is now needed at all levels. The climate and nature crisis have reached such proportions and urgency that more is needed from all of us. The leadership we can provide with voluntary actions from the private sector, for example, a $100 million commitment for carbon dioxide removal technologies, a $100 million ecosystem restoration and climate justice grant fund, and our purchasing of high quality carbon credits is essential, but we have to be clear, voluntary action of the private sector is no longer enough, especially if only 1/3 of the world's 2,000 largest companies have some kind of climate action plan. That is why Salesforce advocates strongly for global mandatory carbon and nature disclosure for all large companies. My second point is about coordination. If you imagine winning the 1.5-degree target and the Sustainable Development Goals, imagine it like a team sport. We all have our roles to play. Everybody needs to know exactly what they're doing. But until recently, few people knew the rules. Some of the players were playing against their own team, and there was little coordination between public sector, private sector, and civil society. That is now about to change. It's essential for the UN and for governments to be the team captain and coordinate. The private sector can provide the entrepreneurship, the innovation, the sheer financial muscle and power of scaling that only the private sector can bring. If we coordinate well, we can reach the 1.5-degree target, the global biodiversity framework targets, and the SDGs. My third point is about finance. All of this will cost money. It will cost much less than inaction on climate and on nature is already costing us. But it will need upfront finance. We all need to invest more, and we need to come together in public-private partnerships to ensure that the just transition to a net zero, nature-positive world is sufficiently funded. I would like to give one example where all of this is coming together: leadership, coordination, and finance, and that is the Global Mangrove Breakthrough. We are financing this initiative that aims to conserve and restore an additional 15 million hectares of mangroves worldwide. There are now dozens of partners involved. It will be a $4 billion constructive and collaborative effort with capital at every level available for mangrove projects. This is leadership, it's coordination, and it's finance at its best. We need many more examples like that, and the Global Landscapes Forum is one of the fora where this kind of coordination can happen. So let's imagine winning 2023 is the midpoint of the SDGs. We have to stay optimistic. That is essential for success. Let's imagine winning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We still do have Professor Sibanda and Ms. Dixon online, and I would just like to go to them quickly, briefly, in 1 minute each. What is that one question on your mind that keeps coming back ahead of the COP28 and also taking on some of the thoughts or points that have been made by Bill Christopherson?
Well, do you want me to go first, maybe?
Yes, and
yeah. So first of all, let me finish what I was trying to describe as the turnarounds, because I could only finish 3, and there are 2 very important ones, which is energy and also food. And these are absolutely essential, and they will be covered at COP. But the problem is that what we will see is many statements, as we've just heard from Salesforce, which is that by investing in specific sectors and not actually changing the current system that perpetuates poverty and inequality, we are not going to solve our climate crisis. The 2 key aspects that came out of all of our analysis is that inequality and poverty will continue to be the most grave existential threat. So what does that mean for COP? That basically means that we need to have leadership on fossil fuel phase out, that we need to ensure that we actually get a deal, and I think we probably will, on food and land use so that we move towards regenerative agriculture, that we not only reduce our emissions, but that we very much focus on the role of people and prosperity in all of the decisions that we actually take. That's what Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity, is all about. But that's also what I'm having in terms of conversations at the highest level, from the UN Secretary General that I was just with, all the way down to local farmers, who all want the same thing. We must emerge from this emergency with new systems that put people, planet, and prosperity at the center, that ensure that we have both our financial and our economic systems that support low-income countries, not only as they're faced with crises, but so they can actually build the alternative future that they deserve. And that means a new financial architecture that addresses debt cancellation, that addresses special drawing rights, a new financial architecture that doesn't just finance technology, but that fundamentally changes so that wealth distribution goes to the many rather than just to the few.
thank you. People, planet, prosperity. That's the message, and much more. Professor Sibanda.
Thank you. So for me, we need to stop the either-or game. It's not an issue of energy or food or water or land. It's all the systems that we need for survival. Let's put them all on the table. And most important, let's address the question, as we transform the food, land, water, and energy systems, what finance do we need to do this in a sustainable way? And can we put the money on the table that will address the challenges that we face and the technologies that we need so that they are developed and adopted. So money for all systems, not just for food, for energy, for water, and land transformation. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. I wish we had time on us, but as I say, time is up. We don't have so much time. Thank you so much to our guests this evening, Ms. Sandrine Dixon de Cleve, co-president of the Club of Rome, and Professor Lindiwe Majele Sibanda, chair of SIGIA, and also an animal scientist and a practicing farmer. The conversation will continue offline, online, in all our small groupings, at the grassroots, wherever we are. Let's continue discussing this and keep the conversation going on. But I would like to hear from you who are here now. Take a minute to connect with your neighbor. Say hello. Do you know each other? You've been here for 2 days. Is there any question that you have? Any issue that is burning on your mind that you'd like to discuss? You may want to pick it up again when we go out to the reception to discuss that. Those of us who are listening to us online, thousands of you tuning in from across the world, we are going to collect any thoughts that you have, any questions on Slido, and the responses are going to be shown on the screen. Please continue talking to your neighbor in 1 minute. And we also encourage you to use social media, go to X, formerly Twitter, using the hashtag GLF Nairobi. We value your feedback, your comments, your suggestions, and takeaways from this conference. Please send in your comments there, hashtag GLF Nairobi. Let's hear what you have to say, give us feedback. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce a very special person who is definitely going to inspire you. He's Otto Sharma. He's the author and senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management and founding chair of the Pre-Sensing Institute. Hello. Hello. Let's listen to Mr. Otto Sharma.
My name is Otto Sharma. I want to invite you to a brief systems thinking-based reality meditation that is beginning with the current state of the system and then tuning into emerging future possibilities. What you see here is what's often used in systems thinking as a metaphor, right, for the different layers of systems. The iceberg model with the visible parts above the waterline, here the symptoms of the poly crisis, and the root issues more below the waterline that shape the behavior of that system. What we are focusing on really as change makers across all systems, and that is improving the quality of relationships. And it has to do with shifting the inner place from that we operate. And that, you could call that kind of shifting the quality of awareness or consciousness from that we operate. So that's kind of the less visible, the invisible dimension of social change that is below the surface and yet has a huge influence on our effectiveness, really, as change makers. Another source of inspiration really is this quote of by Ilya Prigozhin, when a system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the entire system to a higher order. So he's talking about when a system is moving from one state of stability to another one, there's in between, there is this moment of chaos that what's called the bifurcation point, where small differences can have an outsized impact whether the system is moving in one or the other direction. When a system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the entire system to a higher order. What do we see? What is this all converging towards? I think it all has to do with decolonizing, right? Which is really a profound shift of our paradigm and mindset from extractive to regenerative. It has to do with a profound ego-to-ego shift in our relationships and in our behavior, with a shift from just reacting to the issues of the past towards sensing and actualizing emerging future possibilities. The question is, if you look at the bottom of all this, so what is kind of really the operating system that is linking all these phenomena? And I think it has to do, I don't know what the right name is, I call it matrix machinization, but what I really mean is that all the behavior here is, almost all of that is manipulated and driven from outside through manipulation, is disconnected from our deeper human awareness and our deeper agency and intentionality. So those are the two forces, right? Those are the two directions. We are pulled backward at the same time as we experience this profound opening forward towards planetary healing, regeneration, ego to ego, and sensing and actualizing emerging future possibilities. And as we form these islands of coherence, what we experience is this amazing activation of larger parts of the system that slowly are beginning to be uplifted into a new way of operating. I think that's my count of what I am experiencing in working with many different systems and many different places. I want to leave you with a question. Where are really the true seeds of this profound renewal that we know we can activate, that is beginning to be activated in a few places, but often it's not? And I would say the seeds of that profound renewal are in our hearts, and they are in our relationships, how we relate to each other and how we relate to our planet.
Thank you. And he sent in a much longer video, 13 minutes long. You have seen the QR code there. Scan it. It's also on your programs, and you can access that version. And you've been asked a question. How do we take action for our survival? I think change, as he said, begins with you and I. It's in you as an individual. I hope you're inspired. Are we inspired? Can I hear it in the affirmative? We are. Hello, where you are? Thank you. And now we're bringing on board our last speaker for this session, Laila June. She's an indigenous musician, an author, community organizer. And through her blend of music, which is quite captivating, she has informed perspectives rooted in her deep academic and cultural studies. Laila June inspires audiences around the world towards personal growth, collective harmony, and ecological healing. Laila, good evening.
Good evening. Greetings, my people and my relatives. I'm from the Nanisht-Ejitachitni clan of the Dene Nation. We are desert people. We are from the Southwest United States. We are what they call Native Americans or indigenous peoples. We were here before America existed. And we have a lot to tell the world today and a lot to share with the world today. I'm so honored to be here and to connect with folks around the world, especially folks in Africa who I believe are our indigenous counterparts, who carry so much wisdom and knowledge from their cultures and their communities that is ancient and beautiful. And we have been through such similar experiences of colonization, where our people were denigrated, where our languages were prohibited, where our people were told that we were nothing, and then where we were mistreated. And I'm honored to stand with you all to reclaim who we are as beautiful, and to reclaim who we are as leaders in the world who have sciences of our own that are not Eurocentric sciences, but are earth-based, Afrocentric, indigenous-centric sciences that are arguably much more advanced because they sustained cultures very, very, very many thousands of years. And so I'm here to represent and honor my ancestors. I'm here to honor your ancestors as well, whoever you are, and the sustainability science that existed deep inside of our lineages. And I just really wholeheartedly believe, you know, my PhD research really focused on how Native Americans created food systems across North and South America that lasted for thousands and thousands of years. And to me, this is proof that indigenous wisdom holds the keys to sustainability. And if we keep learning from them, we can make our civilizations more civilized and more refined and more intact and more in touch with the land and the water and the cycles of the earth. And so I just really want to advocate for that all of us think about the indigenous peoples of the land that we're standing on and our own indigenous roots, no matter who we are, and reach into them, because the world has told us they are primitive when in fact they are the most advanced science on the planet. So please honor those things. And I'm honored to be a small part of this. And there's lots of research of mine online if you want to look into it. I'm just going to sing a quick little song because I'm also a musician. And yeah, we'll just go from there.
Yeah, before the song, Lila, you've talked a bit about the promise of, or the role of indigenous leadership for planetary survival. But how does the idea of a survival guide make you feel? If you can answer that and then jump into the song.
Sure. Yes, of course. I follow your lead here. Well, a survival guide makes me feel excited and happy because what used to work in the past century is not going to work this century. We are not going to have the stability that we've enjoyed, the climatic stability, the soil stability, etc. We're going to need a guide to get through this century. And this century, I believe, the guide is not just what we do, but how and why we do it. So, for example, the value systems, to me, is part of the survival guide. Value systems that run our entire cultures. If our value system is profit maximization, that's not going to work. But if our value system is reciprocity, reverence, respect, responsibility, restraint, regeneration, and relationality, seeing all of creation as our relative, that to me is just as much a part of the survival guide as, how we implement those things and what we do, but really the inner software of the human being that we run on, the program that we run on is so important. And that is our value systems as a society, what we deem as valuable, what we deem as important. And if profit maximization continues to be what we value as important, we will perish, period. Because that type of greed was never meant to live on this beautiful planet. It was never meant to succeed here. This planet was designed for reciprocity and generosity. And that's the only thing that lasts. Okay. Shall I go ahead and start the song?
Out the song, please. We're waiting.
Yes, ma'am. indigenous people, shine your light, we are equal, yeah, yeah. I remember the days when our prayers were illegal. I remember the days when being Indian was lethal, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had a rough past, but get ready for the sequel. Get ready for the glorious comeback of our people, oh, yeah. Rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. All nations rise. Rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. With forgiveness as my bow and my prayers as my arrows, pull it back and let go. I watch them fly like arrows. Have hope. Have hope. With compassion as our shield and faith down to our marrow, we will walk the pollen path even when it gets narrow. Yeah, yeah. Resurrect. Yes, you can bet that we seen the single mama raising children on the res. We seen domestic violence tear apart what we have left. We seen the alcohol take it all and leave us dead. We've seen the children take the dread anymore. No, we can't take the dread anymore. Or no, I won't take the dread anymore. 'Cause I can't stand the dread anymore. Yes, it's a war, but we've seen it all before. And now we know we can change it, 'cause that's why we were born. We know we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Yes, we are the ones that grandma has been praying for. So rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. Yay.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Laila, you are amazing. Thank you so much.
You guys are all amazing and beautiful. I'm honored to share space with you. My prayers are with you.
Please repeat that. We were so excited clapping. We missed what you said, Laila.
I said you guys are all amazing and beautiful, and I'm honored to share space with you, and I wish I could be there in person. And my prayers are with you, and I believe in all of you with all my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. You should see us here. Lots of us struggling with the tears, but so beautiful. Thank you so much, Laila. We are so honored to have had you this evening, hearing about your survival guide and your indigenous community and the efforts that you're putting into place to ensure that the art survives. Thank you, audience. You've also been very lovely. Great participants. Asante sana. Thank you very much for being here today and for your commitment to addressing the climate crisis. Let us embark on this journey together. It's not a one-month journey. It's for all of us. Let's pave the way towards a decarbonized world where landscapes thrive and humanity flourishes. I thank you so much. Before we conclude, I'll pass this over to the MC, Elias, and let's keep inspiring and stirring each other into action. Thank you.
Let me also test my vocals. Yeah, that was really ecstatic from Laila. Thanks very much, Ruth, for moderating our closing plenary. And our amazing speakers, thank you very much. And to all of you here, thank you for joining us for the last 2 days. Come on, guys, you deserve better than that. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us for the last 2 days and putting the building blocks in place for a new vision for Earth. I think we now have a new vision for Earth. Is that right? What is next? Come on, guys. What is next? Nice. I love that. So we hope you're leaving this event feeling inspired and emboldened to play your part in forging a brighter path forward for all of us. Yeah, so I had the honor to be one of your MCs for the past 2 days. But now I would like to wear another hat. This is for a person that has been part of the youth movement for 7 years now. Almost a decade ago, a young woman who is actually in this room with us, of course, the incredible Salina Abraham, stood on the stage of the 2015 Global Landscapes Forum in Paris and asked the audience to consider youth as an intersection similar to how gender, race, class is considered. GLF and C4E listened. Since then, they have been actively collaborating with the Youth in Landscapes Initiative, a growing network and movement that is steered by the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, Youth for Nature, and the International Forestry Students Association. Come on, guys, make some noise. Since then, the Youth in Landscapes Initiative has grown in members, in actions, and in hope. And today, we have the pleasure to make 2 joyful announcements. Are you guys ready for them? We are excited to welcome to the Youth in Landscapes Initiative Steering Committee, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, the official youth constituency under the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. Yes, we said we are growing. And I said I have 2 joyful announcements, right? So I'll keep the last one for tomorrow, right? You guys agree? Anyways, so we are thrilled to share a new memorandum of understanding between the Youth in Landscapes Initiative and C4E and GLF. I must thank you to the GLF and C4E leadership for your trust and collaboration I strongly believe that our joint visions for the earth can change the course of humanity and create a more just, resilient, and peaceful world. Guys, you don't want to clap? I think you'll clap for me when I stand here. Yeah, so I am honored to invite Dr. Elianu Barijoro, the Chief Executive Officer of SIPO ICRAF and Director General ICRAF, to join me as we celebrate this moment. And I'm going to ask her to join me for a selfie moment. This is what you get when you're an MC at such an event. So if you would like to stand and be part of the selfie, please. Smile, everyone. Thanks very much, Elian. At this moment, allow me to hand over to our amazing host for these last 2 days to close this conference. Over to you, Elian.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us at GLF Nairobi 2023, A New Vision for Earth. What an incredible conference. I would like to give a huge thank you to our donors, partners, and sponsors for making this conference such a success. The Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Nuclear Protection of Germany, the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, the Government of Luxembourg, the Global Environment Facility, the World Bank, the Food Systems Land Use and Restoration Impact Program, ProGreen, the UNCCD G20 Global Land Initiative, Breakthrough Strategies and Solutions, the Robert Bosch Foundation, the Lavazza Foundation, the Crop Trust, Salesforce, and the 33 charter members and engaged partners of the GLF, along with our valued media partners. And thank you all as well to the session hosts, dedicated volunteers, social media ambassadors, team on the ground, and participants, and our incredible online audience. You have tuned in and been such a critical, active part of the conversation. Finally, thank you to all the C4 staff on campus and all over the world, including a special thank you to operations, IT, and last but not least, Peter Murunga and the security team. Over the past 2 days, we've had the immense privilege of connecting with some of the greatest change makers here on our C4 ICRAF Nairobi campus. And I'm so inspired by everyone involved, whether you joined us in person in Nairobi or virtually. This event has reached over 26 million people online. Yeah, let that sink in. 26 million people online. Through web, social media, and online news. And the number keeps growing as today's global conversation continues and takes a life of its own. Just think of that beautiful song we were able to witness tonight. People have engaged almost 200,000 times on social media to share their questions, their hopes, and their solutions. And more than 7,000 people registered from 130 countries. 721 of them joined us here in person in Nairobi. A further 100 joined us from our C4 ICRAF campus in Bogor, Indonesia, for a national dialogue that included a session at GLF Nairobi. And about 250 people joined us through watch parties from GLF community-based chapters in 10 countries, sparking a moment for collaboration and action. Together, we have imagined a new vision for Earth, Our vision is big. We need a survival guide for the planet, but we want to go farther than that. We want to become the ancestors future generations deserve. And C4ICRAF, together with the Global Landscape Forum, is ready to support this vision and build and implement its realization together with all of you. Over the past 2 days, we've listened to the perspective and experiences of community activists, artists, musicians, poets, practitioners, policymakers, funders, the development community, scientists, journalists, and more. And what we've heard are some clear calls to action that ask for our very best collective effort. To release ourselves of the anxiety of our time, to commit fully to collective transformation and embrace real solutions that are already working on the ground in communities, solutions that are transforming life. There is hope. You have shown us what we need to do. You've shared what we need to rethink, how we need to rethink our food systems so they're more sustainable, with the sovereignty and stewardship of people and landscapes. That we need food and seed sovereignty, sustainable wildlife management, peatland management, and dryland restoration. There was consensus from you that we need to scale policy instruments that harmonize the climate, biodiversity, and land nexus while centering the most affected people and areas. And we've listened to your calls for more funding to find future solutions and funding that scales up shared solutions we already have. This is how we can ensure a just and decarbonized world. And it's not something we can solve alone. It will take all of us. Every fraction of degree matters. The sooner we can implement solutions to climate change, the sooner we can avoid irreversible losses and trigger critical climate tipping points. We need to adopt a justice lens and think about how to decolonize our landscapes and heal our relationship with our land. Staying within planetary boundaries is imperative, and it's possible. We need the power of women, indigenous peoples, forest communities, and smallholder farmers, and youth. Young people with decision-making power. Young people who know they deserve better than business as usual. Young people with imagination, willpower, and collaborative spirit create an equitable worth, a healthy earth, an earth that thrives. And what we should all take from these 2 days is a deep sense of purpose and hope. The experience we've shared together will help us shape a global action plan for climate, biodiversity, and food resilience. And I so thank you for joining us at GLF Nairobi and for sharing in this moment as we transform our planet. It is also my pleasure to welcome the Forest and Livelihoods Assessments Research and Engagement, or FLAIR, network to the C4ICRAF campus and to officially open the 9th annual FLAIR meeting. The FLAIR network has a mission to advance knowledge at the intersection of forests and livelihoods and to ensure this is translated into policy and practice. The organization is based at the University of Notre Dame in the United States, and some 200 people from more than 40 countries around the world from the network will join us over the next few days, many of whom are here tonight. I want to thank FLAIR for a strong partnership and wish all participants a successful meeting. And finally, thank you again for everyone here joining us at GLF Nairobi. Now, for our participants here in person, please join us to mark the conclusion of the conference and the start of the next. Over at the Karura stage, we are beginning another night of musical performance co-hosted by the GLF with the FLAIR network. Food and drinks will be provided, so please head over to Karura stage to join in. And for everyone here, wherever you're in, whether you're in this room with me or tuning in at home, I have one final message. When I opened this conference yesterday morning, I asked you to see it as a celebration of what is possible. And this evening, I hope you can take what you've learned, the contacts you've made, and the inspiration you've received, and I hope we can celebrate together as we look forward to a new vision for Earth. Merci.
Thank you very much.
Gracias. Thank you. Dankeschön.
Hello, everyone. You never speak after the host. That's it. Let's head to Karura stage right now.